Okay, we're moving along to two-way if-then statements in VBA. So in this case, for two-way, you come into this logical condition just like you would a one-way, but you do something if that condition is true, and you do something if the condition is false. The general form in VBA has if condition, then you have your statements if that's true, else statements if the condition is false, and then you have an end if. And this is by far the most common if-then structure that's used in VBA programs. Let's look at an example. A lot of times in engineering and math, you'll have piecewise functions. Here we have a piecewise function for the friction factor as a function of the Reynolds number, which is R. So this is used in fluid dynamics. Basically, the function has a different value if the Reynolds number is less than 2,000, as when the Reynolds number is greater than 2,000. We can draw just the quick flow diagram element for this. We come into this, we have a conditional, is R less than 2,000? If that's true, then we're going to calculate the output of the function. In this case, we're going to make a function that's 16 divided by the Reynolds number. Otherwise, if that's false, if it's not less than 2,000, then it's greater than or equal to 2,000, then we calculate the friction factor using this other piece of the function. So in VBA, if we were to create a function, then it would look like this. The name of our function is fluid. It has an argument which is the Reynolds number R. If R less than 2,000, then fluid, remember the output of a function is always the name of a function, fluid equals 16 divided by R. Otherwise, fluid is the second part of the function here. And we end if and end function. And then we could just use this in Excel. We could just type in fluid because it's a function on the different Reynolds numbers, and we would get the output of the function, which is the friction factor. Let's work through another example. How would you create a VBA sub that would add 20 to a cell's value if the number were positive and subtract 20 from the cell's value if the number were not positive? Let's make a quick flowchart for this. We start, we check to see if the active cell value is greater than 0. If that's true, then the new active cell value is equal to the old active cell value plus 20. Otherwise, the new active cell is equal to the old active cell value minus 20. And then we reconvene and we end. So I'm going to create my subroutine in the editor. So I type in the first line, and when I press enter for any sort of if statement, I like to put, if this is a two-way, I'll put the else, and I always like to add or include the end if so I don't forget it. So if that's positive, if active cell is greater than 0, then the new active cell is the old active cell plus 20. Otherwise, the new active cell is the old active cell minus 20. It's always nice to set up positive and negative controls. So let's go ahead and step through this using F8. If the active cell is greater than 0, 7 should be. We bump into that true option there, and we increase the active cell value by 20. Otherwise, if we click in -4 and we run through this, you see that we skip over that part, the true part of the two-way if then, into the false part, and we subtract 20. Let's do another more advanced example here. We want to make a function, so a VBA function, not a sub, that's going to output biz if the corresponding number that we put into the function is divisible by 3. We're going to assume we're working with positive integers. Buzz if the number is divisible by 5, and bizbuzz if the number is divisible by both 3 and 5. So a flowchart for this is shown here. You notice that it starts out with a two-way if-then, and it comes back together. That two-way if-then comes back together. But on each arm of the two-way if-then, we have another two-way if-then. So we really have 4 options here. X can be divisible by 3 and 5. In that case, we output bizbuzz. X can be divisible by 3 but not be divisible by 5, and in that case we output biz. X can not be divisible by 3 but be divisible by 5. In that case we output buzz. And finally, X can be not divisible by either 3 nor 5, and in that case we don't do anything. So let's go ahead and put this into a module. Again, this is going to be a function, and we're going to call it bizbuzz. The argument is going to be X and it's going to be an integer. We've already taken into account the enter x because that's taken into account when we input that as an argument to the function. The next thing we do is we have a two-way if-then. So I like to just sort of frame it out. It'll give you a warning because you don't have anything after the if. And if the first condition is false, we go into a one-way if-then, which is shown here in the original else statement. So to see if x is divisible by 3, we can use the mod function. If x mod 3 equals 0, then we see if x is divisible by 5, and if both of those are true, then we're going to output bizbuzz. The output of a function is always the name of the function. So we write bizbuzz is equal to, in quotations, bizbuzz. Otherwise, so now we're looking at the left arm of the right side of the first conditional, we're going to output biz. So bizbuzz is equal to biz. So now let's look at the left arm of the original two-way if-then, if x is divisible by 3. If that's false, then we have to see if x is divisible by 5. And if x is divisible by 5 but not divisible by 3, we're going to output buzz. And if neither of those are true, we're not going to do anything. So that's why this second embedded if-then structure here is just a one-way. All right, we are ready to go. The way you troubleshoot or debug a function, as you recall, is to put a breakpoint in the first line of executable code. One thing I forgot to do is dim bizbuzz as a string. So we put our breakpoint there. I'm going to go into cell B1 and type in the function with the argument just the cell next to it. And you see that I jumped into the function because I had the breakpoint, and now I can step through it. 1 is not divisible by 3. Oops. And this is why you step through, because I forgot to put a 0 there, equals 0. So let's go ahead and reset this. Go back into Excel, press enter. We go back into debug mode, and we skipped over both. So it's not divisible by either of those, and you see it just left a blank. Now I'm quite certain it's working. I'm going to remove that breakpoint, and I'm going to take that function that I put into B1, and I'm going to drag it all the way down. You see, this is what we would expect. 3 is divisible by 3, so we get biz, 5 divisible, and so on. And the first one that's divisible by both is just the product of 3 and 5, which is bizbuzz. So that hopefully shows you a more complex example of using embedded two-way if-thens inside of another two-way if-then. Thanks for watching.